We're talking about people who think that men are literally evil, and they're weaving that content into curriculum to the point where boys hate the fact that they're men, right? And to the point where secular psychologists are writing books like The War Against Boys and Raising Men and all these different things, because they realize that there's this anti-man narrative. And so the question then becomes, what that is essentially masculine needs to be defended, right? And when I was talking about the Andrew Tate stuff, he's like he's overcorrecting, right? And he's very sexual and he's very pornographic. But there's this line from Cardinal Ratzinger years ago, and I cannot find the speech, but Dr. Hahn referenced it.
He's on it.
Scotty, yeah, try to find it. But he said the crisis of today is a crisis of fatherhood, or is an attack on fatherhood. And he goes through this list of like contraception is a denial of fatherhood, homosexuality is, and he goes through all of these things that are in vogue and popular in the I believe it was in the 90s. And I think about that's the antidote to all the Matrix, Red Pill, Manosphere stuff, is they want to be men who have, strong bodies, strong minds, the stoic philosophers, but they don't want to be dads. Matt Walsh talked about when he was celebrating the birth of his last kid. He's like, and not to be outdone by the left is the alt-right manosphere who called my child an F trophy.
But a YouTuber from the Manosphere named Ryan Stone tweeted, showing off the F trophies for clout. F trophies like the F word, trophies. That's what so the babies are trophies that I'm showing off for clout. He then went on a multi-tweet tirade complaining about men who take pictures with their own children. It's not manly, apparently. To love your kids and be proud of them is not manly. It's perhaps not a surprise that a picture of a proud father would be so upsetting to the sort of man who clearly never had one.
Like, that's how they demean children, right? And they demean marriage and all this stuff. And it's like, no, this is fatherhood. Fatherhood is as manhood is the perfection of boyhood. Fatherhood is the perfection of masculinity, right? So to be a boy means to have all these potencies, right? To be a man is to actualize them. I'm mature. To be masculine is fully realized and perfected in fatherhood, whether it's spiritual or physical, right? Because all of those things that I love about, about my life and all these things, I have to subordinate them to my wife and my kids. And I have to love it. And that's the thing that they don't get, because it's all about me going to the gym and me getting my time in and not simping for the women and, not that's good. Not looking at pornography, not paying, $80,000 to OnlyFans girls and all these like craziness. But at the same time, there's a denial of their fatherhood. And I don't know about you, but like for me, I would be a far worse man without my kids. I love my wife, obviously. Obviously, I love my wife.
I got it.
He's got it. Let's hear it.
It's from a March 2000 speech in Palermo, Italy.
March 2000 in Palermo, Italy. You know what Palermo, Italy is famous for? Nope. Founding of La Cosa Nostra, the predecessor of the mafia. Go on.
The crisis of fatherhood we are experiencing today is an element, perhaps the most important element, threatening man is humanity.
Oh, just think about that.
Say that one more time.
I think I butchered it the first time, so that's good.
You got it with a German accent. It's understandable. It's Ratzinger.
The crisis of fatherhood. I'm not sorry. That was hilarious.
No, well done.
You know it. I know it. It was brilliant.
The crisis of fatherhood we are experiencing today is an element, perhaps the most important element, threatening man in his humanity.
Crisis
the crisis of fatherhood is the most important element threatening man in his humanity.
I mean, so my whole life I thought I was called to be a priest. My mom told me I had priest hands. When I was a kid, I had priest hands. I told Father Mike Schmitz that, and he goes, "What the heck does that even mean?" And I go, "I think it means I've never done an honest day's work in my life." He got so pissed off.
So jacked.
He got so oh man.
He did not get pissed off.
Oh, he did, because he's like, "What does that even mean, priest hands?" And I was like, "I work every day." And I was like, "I think you only work on Sunday." But
he's so jacked. Dude.
Yeah, but in my head, I was called to be a priest, so I never imagined myself as a husband. Never even imagine girls, but I never imagined remotely being a dad. Even when I was married and my wife was pregnant, like I did all the things with the belly and the cooing, and I bought a thing to try to listen to the heartbeat from Walmart, didn't work. Did all of those things. And I loved the idea, but so my wife, when she went into labor with Kateri, in labor for days, when we were at Saturday evening vigil mass, and she had a contraction, and she stood up for Holy Communion, and there was a grandmother behind her, and she goes, oh, and it's like, she's fine. This has been going for a day and a half. I was texting Luke and drove by the exit to the hospital. Whoopsie. But Kateri,
No, that's not true, is it?
100% fact. 100% fact.
Your first child?
Yeah, Kateri, my
What were you texting about?
I
What if we
went to
start
the
a
hospital.
podcast? What's that? You'll learn. Yeah.
One day. No, I was texting that we're on the way to the hospital. I'm so excited. But holding Kateri, so we almost every time my wife had a contraction, her heart would stop beating. And all these things. And the doctor's like, now I know you want to have it natural. And Shannon goes, I don't care. Get this child out of me if it's going to save her life. And he's like, oh, let's go now. And then they forgot about me. And so I'm like suiting up with all the booties and the hairnet.
Just alone.
Hello? Yeah. They shut the lights off. There's that one flickering like a zombie movie. Guys,
You've got a hairnet
do you want me to start serving the French fries now?
and a beard
And
net.
a beard net. But no, my wife goes, so I walk in, right? You walk in if you've never seen what a C-section is, they're cruciform. And there's a sheet that they pin up that goes right underneath their neck.
I remember that, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she is there and she just looks at me, and all the things that you go to, all the classes, the prenatal class things, where it's like,
Ain't none of that stuff.
ain't none of that, right? We rub their back and feed them ice chips and tell them they're so brave, right? I did none of that. I'm like, well, I can't feed you anything. And I just held her head like this. And I was like, we're going to get through this. So then
Good man.
the baby, Kateri comes out, she's delivered. And I had it recorded. And you go, 8:08 p.m., it's a girl. And I'll never forget the doctor saying that and my daughter crying and my wife going, oh, and then I get to hold her. And, as a teen in youth ministry, you always hear those speakers who talk about their kids all the time. And I remember that was one thing, like, all they ever do is talk about their kids. The moment I held her, all I ever did was talk about my kids. I love my kid. Like, I remember just holding her and being like, I got to learn so much about life right now. Like, I don't know what a school board is. I don't know what any of this crap is. Everything Janet Smith says in her famous contraception, why not talk? Like, that was racing through my head. Like, I need to do all this stuff because this kid is now mine and I am going to screw this up big time. And I've never loved.
Do you remember being shocked that the hospital at some point went, all right, there you go. You can go now. What, really? You're not going to trust me with this thing.
Is there a manual? Yeah, it was crazy. And you walk out of there. My wife hates hospitals. She can't wait to get out. So we get out of there. We go out, and I have to raise this kid. The biochemical oxytocin, blah blah blah. Like all that stuff is so real. Because when I looked at her, everything was different. Everything was different. To be a man, to understand the principles of personal finance and Dave Ramsey and get out of debt and do all this stuff. To be a husband, learning how to give yourself, accommodate someone else in your life, in your space, using your stuff, being in your bathroom when you just want to poop and read a book, right? Like all of these things that are so important to dudes being dudes, all of that you suborn to this child. And then I had another one. And then I had another one. And then I had another one. And you realize, and Pope John Paul talks about this, like when you commit yourself in love, you hem yourself and you give up in the name of your freedom, you give up freedom for this one person. But then through that love, first of marriage, then of kids,
Your world gets larger.
your horizon is infinitely expanded.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. Before you go, do us a favor, leave a comment, let us know what you thought of the video, like, and subscribe.